Woman abandoned her baby son. Years later, she returns and what she sees leaves her shocked. Jennifer Parker drove through the streets of the Green Hills neighborhood in Denver with trembling hands on the wheel. 8 years had passed since the hardest decision of her life, and now she was there, just a few feet from the house where she'd left her newborn baby on a cold winter dawn. When she stopped the car in front of that simple house with a blue gate, her heart nearly stopped at the sight of the boy playing in the front yard. It was impossible to deny the resemblance. The same brown eyes, the same face shape, even the way he ran was identical to his father's. Michael, the man she'd loved deeply, and who had left this world in a motorcycle accident when she was 3 months pregnant. The boy was playing ball alone, wearing a light polo shirt and beige pants, looking exactly like an 8-year-old. Jennifer watched his every move through the car window, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. It was her son, her Ethan, the baby she'd left wrapped in a yellow blanket with a note apologizing. As she watched, the front door opened and an elderly couple stepped out. The man, with graying hair and wearing a beige sweater, carried a tray with juice. The woman, her white hair tied in a bun, dried her hands on a floral apron and smiled at the boy with such tenderness that Jennifer felt a pang in her chest. "Little Ethan, come have your orange juice," the woman called affectionately. "Coming, Grandma Martha, just a little longer," the boy replied without stopping his play. Jennifer pressed a hand to her chest. They called him Little Ethan, probably still Ethan. At least she'd gotten that right in the note she'd left with him. Seeing him treated with so much love should have comforted her, but it only deepened the pain. She'd missed 8 years of her own son's life. What she didn't expect was for the boy to notice the parked car and stop playing. He looked directly at her, tilted his head curiously, and started walking toward the gate. Jennifer panicked and almost started the car to leave, but it was too late. "Mom, are you lost?" Ethan asked, resting his hands on the low gate and smiling innocently. His voice was sweet, polite. The couple had raised a well-mannered boy. Jennifer rolled down the car window, trying to steady her emotions. I was looking for a street nearby," she lied, her voice weaker than she intended. "Which street?" "I've lived here forever. I know them all," he said excitedly. Mrs. Martha approached when she noticed her grandson talking to a stranger. When she saw Jennifer's face, she visibly paled. The physical resemblance between the woman and the boy was impossible to ignore. The same delicate features, the same eye color, even the shape of their eyebrows. "Ethan, come here." "Mrs." Martha said in a controlled but firm voice. "But Grandma, the lady's lost. We can help," the boy insisted. "Of course we can," Mr. Richard interjected, stepping closer. "Mom, why don't you come inside? My wife made cornbread cake this morning." Jennifer sensed the invitation was loaded with hidden meaning. The couple knew who she was, or at least suspected, but Ethan clapped his hands excitedly. "Grandma Martha's cake is the best in the whole city. Please say yes," he begged, eyes shining. How could she say no to those eyes? The same eyes she saw in the mirror every day, inherited from his father. Jennifer turned off the car with trembling hands. "Just for a few minutes," she murmured. Inside, the house was exactly as she'd imagined, simple but full of love. Well-kept antique furniture, the smell of freshly baked cake lingering in the air, photographs everywhere. And in every photo was Ethan at different ages, his first day of school, birthdays, trips to the park. "Sit here at the kitchen table, it's cozier," said Mrs. Martha, but her tone was formal, almost cold. Mr. Richard brought coffee in a flower-patterned porcelain cup, while discreetly studying Jennifer. The silence was heavy, broken only by the sounds of Ethan putting away his ball in the backyard. "You said you were looking for a street?" Mr. Richard asked casually. "Are you sure it's in this neighborhood?" "It's actually," Jennifer struggled to find the words, "was looking for an old acquaintance, someone who lived around here a few years ago." "Acquaintance?" Mrs. Martha's voice hardened further. "What was her name?" Before Jennifer could answer, Ethan came running back inside. "Grandma, can I show the lady my photo album? She seems nice." "Ethan, the lady just came to ask about a street," Mrs. Martha tried to dissuade him. "But she can look real quick. I have baby pictures, my first day of school, the school fair." Ethan had already dashed upstairs before anyone could stop him. Mr. Richard and Mrs. Martha exchanged tense glances. Jennifer's heart raced. Seeing the photos would be torture, but also a unique chance to glimpse the life she'd lost. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The boy returned carrying a large blue photo album covered in colorful stickers. He sat beside Jennifer at the kitchen table and opened to the first page. "Look, this is me as a baby," he said, pointing to a photo of a newborn sleeping on a yellow blanket. The same blanket Jennifer had bought. Her hands began to tremble uncontrollably. Mrs. Martha noticed and quickly pulled up a chair to sit across the table, watching every reaction. "Grandpa and Grandma always say I was a really cute baby," Ethan continued innocently, flipping the pages. "Look, here's when I learned to walk, and here's my first birthday." Each photo was a stab to Jennifer's heart. There was the entire life she'd missed. First steps, first words, first smiles, all documented by this couple who had taken in her son when she hadn't been brave enough. "This one's my favorite," Ethan said, pointing to a photo of himself at 4, grinning toothlessly on a swing. "It was at the park where Grandma took me every Sunday." "How sweet," Jennifer managed to whisper, her voice choked. "Are you crying?" Ethan asked worriedly. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, son. No, sweetie. They're happy tears. You have a very special family." The word son didn't escape Mrs. Martha, who stood abruptly. "Ethan, why don't you go play outside while I talk to the lady?" "But I want to show more pictures." "You can show them later. Go on out to the yard." Though reluctant, Ethan obeyed. The moment he left, Mrs. Martha sat back down, now defensive. "I always knew you'd come back one day," she said quietly. "You know who I am? A mother never forgets the face of the person who brought her child into the world, even if she's only seen a blurry photo on an ID." Jennifer was confused. "What ID?" "I found your ID card dropped near the gate the morning we found Ethan," Mrs. Martha explained. "You must have lost it in your hurry. I kept it all these years, waiting for this moment." "Why didn't you look for me?" "Because a woman who abandons a newborn baby on a winter night obviously doesn't want to be found. But I always knew if you were a good person, you'd come back someday." Mrs. Martha's tone was no longer cold, but there was still distrust. Jennifer took a deep breath. "I need to explain." "You don't need to explain anything. What you need to do is answer me one question. What do you want? Why did you come back?" I just wanted to see him, to know if he was okay. I didn't come to cause trouble." "And now that you've seen him, are you going to leave and disappear for another 8 years?" Before Jennifer could answer, Mr. Richard returned to the kitchen carrying an old shoebox. "Martha, I think the time has come," he said calmly. "What time?" Jennifer asked. Mrs. Martha hesitated, then signaled to her husband. He opened the box and pulled out some yellowed papers, including an old ID card and a sealed envelope. "Besides your wallet, there was this too," Mrs. Martha said, handing over the envelope. "I never opened it. I didn't think I had the right." Jennifer recognized the handwriting immediately. It was Michael's, Ethan's father. But how was that possible? He had passed away before she even knew she was pregnant, or at least that's what she had believed. "Where did you find this?" "It was pinned to the blanket along with the baby," Mr. Richard explained. "Along with a note from you." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of Ethan shouting in the backyard. The three rushed outside and found the boy sitting on the ground, blood trickling from his nose. "Grandma, my nose is bleeding again," he said calmly, as if it were normal. "Again?" Jennifer asked, alarmed. "It happens sometimes when he plays too hard or gets nervous," Mrs. Martha explained, already grabbing a cloth. "The doctor said it's normal for kids." But Jennifer knew it wasn't normal, not when it could be a symptom of a rare genetic condition she had discovered she had just a few months after Ethan was born, von Willebrand syndrome, a disorder that affects blood clotting. "We need to take him to the doctor. Now," she said, standing up quickly. "Why?" "It's just a nosebleed," Mr. Richard replied, "because it could be a sign of something more serious. I have a genetic condition that he might have inherited." The mood shifted completely. Mrs. Martha paled even further, and Mr. Richard gripped his grandson's shoulder firmly. "What kind of condition?" Mrs. Martha asked, her voice trembling. "Von Willebrand syndrome. It affects blood clotting. I found out I had it after Ethan was born. It was one of the reasons I thought it would be better to leave him with a family who could take proper care of him." "And you never came back to tell us?" Mrs. Martha's voice was thick with emotion. "I tried. I came here a few times in the early years, but I always chickened out. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me, afraid I'd cause trouble, afraid of everything." Ethan, whose nose had stopped bleeding, looked at the three adults, confused by the tension in the air. "Why is everyone sad?" he asked innocently. "We're not sad, sweetheart," Mrs. Martha lied, wiping her eyes. "Just worried about your little nose." "But it stopped bleeding. It always stops on its own." That only made Jennifer more worried. Frequent nosebleeds that stopped on their own were exactly one of the symptoms she had experienced. "Even so, I think we should take him to the doctor for some tests," Jennifer insisted. "And since when do you get to decide what's best for my grandson?" Mrs. Martha snapped. The shout made Ethan take a step back, startled. Mr. Richard quickly intervened. "Martha, calm down. She might be right. If there's a chance Ethan inherited something, we should find out sooner rather than later. I don't want her interfering in my boy's life." "Grandma, why are you mad at the lady?" Ethan asked, confused. Mrs. Martha took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. She looked at her grandson, then at Jennifer, and finally at her husband. "Fine. We'll go to the doctor, but just as a precaution." On the way to the hospital, a heavy silence filled the car. Ethan sat in the back with Mrs. Martha, asking questions no one could properly answer. Jennifer was driving, her hands still trembling, while Mr. Richard sat in the passenger seat holding the shoebox with the papers. "Is the lady going to stay with us at the hospital?" asked Ethan. "We don't know yet," Mrs. Martha replied evasively. "I'd like her to stay. She seems nice, and she has eyes just like mine." The boy's innocent remark made all the adults exchange glances. The physical resemblance was truly striking, and Ethan was starting to notice. At the hospital, as they waited to be seen, Jennifer finally gathered the courage to open the envelope Michael had left. With shaking hands, she pulled out a 2-page handwritten letter. "My dear Jennifer," the letter began, "if you're reading this, it means something has happened to me and our son has already been born. First, I want you to know that I love you more than anything in this world, and I also love this baby I haven't even met yet." Jennifer had to stop reading. Tears blurred the words. Mrs. Martha stepped closer. "Would you like me to continue?" she offered gently. Jennifer nodded and handed her the letter. Mrs. Martha cleared her throat and continued quietly, so Ethan wouldn't hear. "I found out about your medical condition through the tests you took in secret. I know you're scared. I know you're thinking of running away. But I want you to know that this doesn't change my love for you or our son." "He knew," Jennifer whispered. "It seems so," Mrs. Martha replied, continuing to read. "I sold my motorcycle and all my belongings to save money for an experimental treatment in Switzerland. I knew you wouldn't let me do this if you found out, so I arranged everything in secret. By the time you get this letter, I'll already be on the road to pick you up so we can go together." The revelation left everyone breathless. Michael hadn't abandoned Jennifer. He was trying to save her. "What happened to him?" Mr. Richard asked softly. "Motorcycle accident on the road," Jennifer murmured. "His family blamed me. They said if I hadn't run away, he wouldn't have been on the road." The letter continued. "If something goes wrong and I can't make it back, I want you to know I've already spoken to Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richard, our neighbors. They're good people who offered to help if we needed it. Trust them. They'll take good care of our son if necessary." "You knew Michael?" Jennifer asked, surprised. "Very well," Mrs. Martha replied warmly. "He came to us 2 weeks before the accident. He was so worried about you, said you'd disappeared, and he was afraid you might do something reckless. He asked us to keep an eye on your house," Mr. Richard added. "Said if anything happened to him, you might come back and leave the baby there. Asked us to care for him as if he were our own grandson." The last part of the letter was the most moving. "Jennifer, if you're reading this, and our son is with Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richard. Know that this is exactly what I planned. They'll love him as we would. But that doesn't mean you should give up on yourself. Fight for your health, fight for your life. Our son will need his mother someday. I've always believed in you. With all my love, Michael. The silence that followed was broken only by the doctor's call. Ethan Richard Wilson, shouted the nurse. That's my grandson, Mrs. Martha said, standing up. During the exams, the doctor asked several questions about family history. Jennifer, though she had no legal right, explained her condition. The doctor, Dr. Robert, a middle-aged man with gentle manners, listened carefully. We'll run some specific tests for von Willebrand syndrome, he said. Better to be certain. How long will the results take? Mrs. Martha asked anxiously. A few days for the basic tests, a week for the more specific ones. While Ethan was getting his blood tests done, Jennifer waited in the lobby with the elderly couple. The tension was palpable. Now that we know the truth about Michael, I need to ask you something, said Mrs. Martha. What do you plan to do if the tests come back negative, and if they're positive? I don't know, Jennifer admitted. I spent 8 years convincing myself I'd done the right thing. I built a new life, became a research doctor, specializing in rare genetic diseases. But I never stopped thinking about him. A doctor? Mr. Richard asked, surprised. Yes. The condition I discovered had motivated me to study medicine. Now I work at a research lab in New York. Ironic, isn't it? I dedicate my life to helping people with conditions like mine, but I never had the courage to come back and help my own son. Mrs. Martha softened her expression. Michael was right about you. He always said you were stronger than you realized. When Ethan finished his tests, he returned to the lobby excited. It barely hurt, he announced proudly, and the nurse gave me a superhero sticker. That's great, champ, said Mr. Richard, ruffling his grandson's hair. Miss, are you coming back tomorrow to get the results? Ethan asked Jennifer innocently. I don't know if I can, she replied, glancing at Mrs. Martha. Why not? Do you live far away? A little far, yes. But you can sleep at our house. Grandma always lets friends stay over when it's far. The boy's suggestion took everyone by surprise. Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richard exchanged glances. Ethan, the young lady probably has her own plans, Mrs. Martha said diplomatically. Actually, Jennifer interjected, I took a few days off work. I don't have to go back to New York right away. Then stay, Ethan insisted, clapping his hands. The drive back home was less tense. Ethan chattered non-stop about school, his friends, and his favorite games. Jennifer absorbed every word, trying to commit it all to memory. Do you like soccer? Ethan asked. I like watching it, Jennifer replied. I play in the neighborhood league. There's practice tomorrow. Can you come watch? If Grandma and Grandpa say yes. Of course she can come, Ethan said, before his grandparents could respond. Mrs. Martha glanced at Jennifer in the rearview mirror. There was something different in the older woman's gaze now, no longer suspicion, but cautious curiosity. Back at the house, Mrs. Martha prepared the guest room. You can stay tonight, she said. Tomorrow we'll see how things go. At dinner, Ethan asked Jennifer more questions. Where she lived, what she did at work, if she had kids. The last question nearly made Jennifer choke on her food. No, I don't have kids, she lied. Why not? You seem like you'd be a cool mom. Ethan, enough questions. Eat your food, Mrs. Martha interjected. But I'm curious. She's different from the visitors you usually have. How so? Mr. Richard asked. I don't know how to explain it, but when I look at her I feel something here, Ethan said, placing a hand on his chest. The adults exchanged glances again. The child's intuition was striking. Later, after Ethan went to bed, the three adults sat in the living room for a serious talk. I need to know your intentions, Mrs. Martha said bluntly. I won't let you confuse the boy if you plan to show up and disappear again. I understand your concern, and I admire the love you have for him. You've been his parents in every way that matters. But, Mr. Richard pressed, but he's my son too, and if he's inherited my condition, I want to help with his treatment. I can give him access to the best specialists in the country. And in return, Mrs. Martha asked. Nothing in return, I just want him to have the best life possible, even if that means staying away from him. Jennifer took a while to respond. If it's what's best for him, yes. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The following days were an emotional roller coaster for everyone. Jennifer went with Ethan to soccer practice, where she met other mums and for a few moments felt like part of a normal family. The boy introduced her as Grandma's friend, but always with a special smile. At school, when Jennifer went to pick him up one day, the teacher made a comment that left her speechless. Ethan talks a lot about the family's new friend. He said she has eyes just like his, and that when he's near her, he feels whole. Kids and their imaginations, right? But it wasn't imagination. Jennifer felt the same way. For the first time in 8 years, she felt complete, yet she knew this fleeting happiness could end at any moment. The test results came on a rainy Thursday. Dr. Robert called the whole family in to talk. "I have good news," he said, smiling. Ethan didn't inherit von Willebrand syndrome. The relief was palpable. Mrs. Martha began to cry. Mr. Richard hugged his grandson, and Jennifer felt as if a massive weight had lifted from her shoulders. "Then why does he sometimes get nosebleeds?" Mrs. Martha asked. "Just seasonal allergies irritating his nasal passages, nothing serious. With the right treatment, even that will stop." "That's great," Ethan said excitedly. "Now the lady doesn't have to worry about me anymore." The boy's words brought everyone back to reality. With the tests negative, what reason did Jennifer have to stay? "I think now I can go back to New York without any worries," she said, trying to sound casual. "You're leaving?" Ethan asked, the joy fading from his face. "I have to work, sweetheart." "But you can work here too. Denver must have labs." "It's not that simple," Jennifer explained, her heart tightening. That night, Ethan had nightmares and woke up calling for Jennifer. Mrs. Martha went to calm him, but he insisted on speaking to the lady with the same eyes. "I dreamed she left and never came back." Ethan sobbed in Jennifer's arms. "It was just a bad dream," she lied, stroking his hair. "Promise you won't leave without saying goodbye." "I promise." But the next morning, Jennifer packed her things early, before Ethan woke up. She left a letter for the Wilsons and another for the boy, explaining she had to return to work but would never forget him. She was loading her bags into the car when she heard a desperate cry. "Lady, don't go!" Ethan ran barefoot across the yard, still in his pajamas, and threw himself into her arms. "You promised you wouldn't leave without saying goodbye." "I left a letter." "I don't want a letter. I want you." Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richard appeared at the door, clearly moved. "Please don't go," Ethan begged, gripping Jennifer's shirt tightly. "I know you're special. Ever since you came, I've felt different, like a missing part of me came back." The boy's words stabbed at Jennifer's heart. How could an 8-year-old put into words exactly what she felt? "Ethan, you have a wonderful family. Grandma and Grandpa love you so much. I love them too, but there's room in my heart for you as well." "Jennifer," Mrs. Martha interjected, "why not stay a few more days, until you're sure? Because it'll only be harder for everyone when I do leave." "And who says you have to leave for good?" Mr. Richard asked. "What do you mean?" "Michael was right about you. You're a good person. And these past days, we've seen how happy Ethan is with you here. He's never asked about his birth mother because he's always had enough love in this home. But now that you've shown up, now that I've shown up, I've complicated everything." "No," said Mrs. Martha firmly. "Now that you've shown up, Ethan is complete. And we've also come to understand that love isn't divided, it multiplies." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a black car in front of the house. A man in a suit stepped out carrying a briefcase. "Wilson family?" he asked formally. "Yes," replied Mr. Richard suspiciously. "I'm attorney William Peterson, representing the Reynolds Scott family. I need to speak with you about the child, Ethan Michael." The mood shifted completely. Jennifer turned pale. "What Reynolds Scott family?" asked Mrs. Martha. "The family of the late Michael Reynolds Scott, the child's biological father." Ethan clung even tighter to Jennifer, sensing the tension in the air. "What do they want?" asked Mr. Richard. "To contest custody of the child. My clients recently discovered the existence of their grandson and wish to exercise their rights as paternal grandparents." "What rights?" Mrs. Martha snapped. "They never cared about the boy." "Actually, they were unaware of his existence. They found out through a private investigator, hired to locate assets of their deceased son." Jennifer felt her world collapsing. Michael's family had found out about Ethan. "They can't take him from me," Mrs. Martha said, her voice trembling. "On the contrary, ma'am, biologically they have legal priority over you. My clients can offer the child a life of privilege, top-tier education, premium healthcare, travel, everything money can buy." "I don't want to leave," Ethan said, frightened. "This is my home." "Child, you don't understand yet," the lawyer said coldly. "Your real grandparents can give you things these people never could." "They are my real grandparents," Ethan shouted. "Legally, no." Jennifer took a deep breath. It was time to take a stand. "Actually, legally, I decide what happens to Ethan." "And who are you?" "Jennifer Parker, his biological mother." The lawyer opened his briefcase and glanced at some papers. "According to our records, the biological mother abandoned the child. That voids your parental rights." "It doesn't. I can contest it and reclaim custody." "Ma'am, with all due respect, a mother who abandons a newborn rarely regains custody after 8 years, especially when she can't financially compete with a millionaire family," the lawyer added with an unpleasant smile. Ethan started crying. "I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stay with Grandma, Grandpa, and the lady." "The decision isn't yours, child." "Stop calling my son child," Jennifer said firmly. "He has a name. It's Ethan Michael." "Your son?" The lawyer laughed mockingly. "Ma'am, you lost the right to call him that when you abandoned him." That was the last straw for Jennifer. 8 years of guilt, regret, and pain turned into determination. "Fine. If it's war they want, it's war they'll get. I'll fight for custody of my son." "With what money?" "My clients can hire the best lawyers in the country. So can I. I'm a medical researcher with a solid career and the means for a legal battle." The lawyer looked surprised but quickly regained his composure. "Even so, your history of abandonment works against you. And 8 years of total absence from the father's family works against them. If they truly cared about Ethan, they would have looked for him sooner. They didn't know he existed because they never bothered to look into their own son's life. Michael tried talking to them about me multiple times, but they always shut him down." Mrs. Martha looked at Jennifer with admiration. "I'll stand by her in this fight," Mrs. Martha declared. "We raised that boy with love. That has to count for something." "Unfortunately, love doesn't pay lawyers," the man said scornfully. "But I do," said Jennifer. "I'll cover all the legal defense costs. Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richard will keep custody, and I'll officially waive my rights in their favor." Ethan stopped crying and looked at her in surprise. "You'd do that for me?" "I'd do anything for you." The lawyer tucked away the papers, clearly annoyed. "You'll receive the official notice soon. My clients won't give up easily." After he left, silence weighed heavily on the family. Ethan sat on Jennifer's lap, still trembling. "Why do those people want to take me away?" "Because they don't understand that family isn't just about blood," Jennifer explained. "It's about love, care, and presence. And they don't love me? They don't even know you, sweetheart. Then why do they want me to live with them?" It was a hard question to answer for a child. How do you explain greed, wounded pride, and financial motives? "Sometimes adults do things even they don't fully understand," said Mrs. Martha. That night, Jennifer stayed awake planning the legal strategy. She called some contacts in New York, including the best family lawyer she knew. "Dr. Marcus, it's Jennifer Parker. I need your help with an urgent matter." After explaining the situation, the lawyer was blunt. "Jennifer, I won't lie. This will be a tough battle. You have the history of abandonment against you, and they have money and influence. But do we have a chance? We do. Especially if we can prove the abandonment was justified by circumstances and that the child is well cared for where he is. The fact that you're willing to give up custody in favor of the family who raised him could work in your favor." "How long could it take?" "Months, maybe over a year." A year where Ethan lives in fear of being taken from the only family he's ever known. That's exactly why we need to be strategic. I'll start working on it first thing tomorrow. The next morning, Jennifer shared her decision with Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richard. I'm moving to Denver temporarily. I got a transfer to work at a research clinic here. That way, I can follow the legal process and stay close to Ethan. You'd do that? Mrs. Martha asked, moved. I'd do anything for him. And for you too. You're his family, and now you're my family too. Ethan, who had overheard the conversation, ran to hug her. You're going to live here in Denver? Yes. I'll rent an apartment nearby. You can stay here with us. I have my own room we can share. I think it's better if I have my own space, but I promise I'll visit all the time. The following weeks were intense. Jennifer settled into an apartment 2 blocks from Mrs. Martha's house, started working at the new clinic, and immersed herself in preparing the legal case. The routine they established was better than anyone could have imagined. Jennifer picked Ethan up from school 3 times a week, took him out for lunch on weekends, and helped with homework. Gradually, Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richard relaxed and began to see Jennifer not as a threat, but as an extension of their family. But Michael's family wasn't idle. They hired investigators to dig into the lives of everyone involved, searching for anything they could use in their favor. The first strike came through a social worker who showed up to assess the child's living conditions. She was a stern, middle-aged woman who had clearly been influenced. Mrs. Wilson, there are concerns about a stranger being constantly present in the child's life, she said during the visit. Stranger? Mrs. Martha took offense. Jennifer is a family friend. I see, but sudden changes in a child's routine can be harmful to emotional development. Ethan, who was at school, didn't witness the visit, but when he found out later, he was furious. She said Jennifer is weird, but she's the least weird person I know. What do you mean by that? Asked Mrs. Martha. Ever since she arrived, I understand things about myself that I never did before, like when I look in the mirror and see eyes just like hers, or when she explains math the same way I think, or when she laughs at the same things I find funny. Ethan's observations were unsettling and comforting at the same time. The child was clearly making instinctive connections with his biological mother. The legal process dragged on, but there was progress. Dr. Marcus managed to document that Michael's family had rejected contact with him in the years before he left, proving their lack of interest in their son's life. They claim they didn't know about the pregnancy, the lawyer explained during a meeting, but I have proof that Michael tried to reach out to them multiple times and was always rejected. What kind of proof? Asked Jennifer. Emails, text messages, even a visit attempt that was documented by the security at the gated community where they live. But Michael's family also had cards up their sleeve. They discovered Jennifer's medical condition and tried to use it against her, claiming a mother with health issues couldn't properly care for a child. That's ridiculous, Jennifer snapped when she heard. My condition has been completely under control for years. I know, but they'll try anything, Dr. Marcus explained. That's why I need you to get a full medical checkup to prove you're healthy. Ethan sensed the growing tension, even though the adults tried to hide it from him. One night, he asked a question that caught everyone off guard. Jennifer, are you my real mum? The silence that followed was deafening. Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richard looked at Jennifer, waiting for her answer. Why do you ask that? She said, buying time. Because I feel it here, he said, placing a hand on his chest. That you're more than a friend, and because everyone acts weird when I ask about you. Ethan, and because your eyes are just like mine, you like the same things I do, and when you hug me, I feel at home in a different way. Jennifer glanced at Mrs. Martha, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Yes, Ethan. I'm your biological mother. I knew it, he said simply. Why did you leave me with Grandma and Grandpa when I was a baby? The hardest question of all. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that his mother was scared, that she was sick, that she thought it was for the best? Because I was very frightened and thought Grandma and Grandpa could take better care of you than I could. And now, are you still scared? A little, but I don't want to be away from you anymore. I don't want you to be away either. Ethan hugged Jennifer tightly, and she felt she had finally told the truth she should have shared 8 years ago. "Does this mean Grandma and Grandpa aren't my grandparents anymore?" Ethan asked worriedly. "No," Mrs. Martha said quickly. "We'll always be your grandparents in heart. You can have as many people in your family as you want." "Good," Ethan said, relieved. "Because I love you and I love Jennifer too." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The truth being revealed to Ethan changed the family dynamic. He started calling Jennifer Mommy Jen and still called Mrs. Martha Grandma. He seemed to have found the perfect balance. But Michael's family intensified their attacks. They hired more investigators and dug into Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richards' past. "They're claiming you're too old to raise a child," Dr. Marcus informed them during a tense meeting. "Too old?" Mr. Richard took offense. "I'm 68 and she's 64. We're in perfect health." "I know, but they'll use any argument. They're also questioning your income, saying you can't provide the same standard of living as they can." "Ethan doesn't need a millionaire's lifestyle," Mrs. Martha said. "He needs love, and we have plenty of that. And now he has 2 families who love him," Jennifer added. "That should count for something." The legal battle was getting uglier. Michael's family had started spreading rumors around the neighborhood about Jennifer, trying to tarnish her reputation. "They're saying you're an irresponsible mother who abandoned your son to do drugs," Mrs. Martha said, furious. "That's a lie," Ethan exploded, having overheard the conversation. "Jennifer is a doctor. She helps sick people." "I know, sweetheart. They're just lies from cruel people. Why do they want to take me if they don't even know me?" It was a question that haunted everyone. The answer came from an unexpected source. One day, an elegant woman appeared at their door. She was well-dressed, wearing expensive jewelry, but her face showed traces of sadness and exhaustion. "Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Reynolds Scott, Ethan's paternal grandmother." "Mrs." Martha nearly slammed the door in her face, but the woman raised her hand. "Please, I just want to talk, only 5 minutes." "Ethan isn't home," Mrs. Martha said coldly. "Actually, I came to speak with you, and if possible, with his mother." Jennifer, who was in the kitchen, heard the conversation and stepped forward. "I'm his mother." Elizabeth studied her from head to toe. "You're younger than I imagined. And you're older than Michael deserved," Jennifer shot back. "We need to talk." Reluctantly, Mrs. Martha let Elizabeth inside. The 3 women sat in the living room, tension thick in the air. "I came here against my husband's and our lawyer's wishes," Elizabeth began. "He doesn't know I'm here." "Why did you come?" Jennifer asked. "Because I need to understand something. Michael was my only son. When he passed, I lost my only chance to be a grandmother. Now I find out I have an 8-year-old grandson I never knew, whose existence you never bothered to look into," Mrs. Martha accused. "It's true. I failed Michael in life and I'm still failing him after his death." Elizabeth's honesty surprised both women. "Michael tried to talk to us about you," she told Jennifer, "but my husband is a proud, stubborn man. He never approved of our son's relationships." "Still, you should never have interfered," Jennifer said. "I know. But when we found out about Ethan, my husband saw a chance to make amends, to give his grandson everything he didn't give his son. Ethan doesn't need things, he needs love. And he has that here, doesn't he?" Elizabeth looked around the simple but welcoming home. She saw pictures of Ethan everywhere, his drawings on the fridge, his toys neatly arranged with care. "Is he happy?" "Very," Mrs. Martha said proudly. "And you're good to him?" "We do our best." Elizabeth was silent for a long moment. "Can I see him? Just once? Not to take him away. Just to meet the grandson I missed watching grow up." Jennifer and Mrs. Martha exchanged glances. "I don't know if that's a good idea," Jennifer said. "Please, I promise I won't scare him or confuse him. I just want to see him once." The plea in Elizabeth's voice was genuine. Mrs. Martha sighed. "He'll be home from school in an hour. You can stay, but if he gets uncomfortable, you'll have to leave." "I accept." When Ethan came home from school, he found 3 women in the living room. He kissed Jennifer hello, hugged Mrs. Martha, and looked curiously at Elizabeth. "Hi," he said politely. "Are you Grandma's friend?" "I am a family acquaintance. answered Elizabeth, her voice choked. "Oh, would you like some juice? Grandma always offers juice to visitors." "No need, thank you." Ethan sat on the couch next to Jennifer and began talking about his day at school. Elizabeth watched his every move, every expression, trying to commit it all to memory. "Ethan," Mrs. Martha said carefully, "Mrs. Elizabeth, she knew your father when you were a baby." "My dad who went to heaven?" "Yes." Ethan looked at Elizabeth with renewed interest. "You knew my dad? What was he like?" Elizabeth began to cry silently. "He was the bravest and kindest boy I ever knew. He looked a lot like you. Mommy Jen says I got my eyes from my dad, but the rest is from her." "Mommy Jen?" Elizabeth looked at Jennifer, confused. "That's what I call Jennifer. She's my real mom, but Grandma and Grandpa are my heart parents." "I see, and you like this arrangement?" "I do. Now I have more people who love me." Ethan's innocence completely disarmed Elizabeth. She realized the child was happy, loved, and well cared for. "Would you like to meet other people who loved your father?" Ethan glanced at Mrs. Martha and Jennifer, seeking guidance. "Depends. Are they as nice as you?" Elizabeth laughed through her tears. "We try to be." "And they won't try to take me away from here?" The question hit Elizabeth like a slap. Ethan knew about the legal battle. "What do you know about that?" she asked gently. "I know some people want me to live far from my family, but I don't want to go. This is my home." Elizabeth looked at the other two women and made a decision that would change everything. "Ethan, if it were up to me alone, you'd stay right where you are. Your home is where you're happy." "Then why does your husband want to take me?" Ethan asked bluntly. Elizabeth was surprised by the child's perceptiveness. "Because sometimes adults confuse what they want with what's best for children. And you don't get confused? I'm learning not to." Elizabeth spent another hour talking with Ethan, listening about school, friends, and his dreams. When she stood to leave, she was visibly moved. "May I give you a goodbye hug?" she asked. Ethan looked at Mrs. Martha, who nodded. He stepped forward and gave Elizabeth a shy hug. "You can come back if you want," he said, "but only if you promise not to try to take me away." "I promise." After Elizabeth left, the three remaining in the room sat in silence for a long time. "She seemed nice," Ethan finally said, "but sad." "Sometimes people get sad when they lose important things," Jennifer explained. "Like when you were sad because you left me here as a baby." Exactly like that. 2 days later, Dr. Marcus called with surprising news. "Jennifer, Michael's family withdrew the custody petition." "What do you mean?" "They gave up. Officially, they cited considerations for the child's best interest." "That doesn't make sense. They were so determined." "Apparently, there was a change of heart in the family. The paternal grandmother convinced her husband to back down." Jennifer smiled, understanding what had happened. Elizabeth had kept her promise. The news of the withdrawal reached the Wilson household like an explosion of joy. Ethan danced around the room, Mrs. Martha cried in relief, and Mr. Richard opened a bottle of soda to celebrate. "It's over," Ethan shouted. "Now I can stay with my family forever." "Forever," Jennifer confirmed, hugging him tightly. But there were still legal matters to settle. Dr. Marcus explained they'd need to formalize the custody arrangement. Ideally, the Wilson family should legally adopt him, with you officially relinquishing parental rights. "And can I still be part of his life?" "Of course. You can arrange a visitation agreement." "No agreement needed," Mrs. Martha interrupted. "She's family. She'll always be welcome here." The following months were a time of adjustment and defining the new family dynamic. Jennifer kept her apartment, but spent most of her free time at the Wilson family's home. Ethan started calling her Mommy Jen on special occasions, while still calling Mrs. Martha Grandma. The routine that developed was perfect for everyone. Jennifer picked Ethan up from school twice a week. He slept over at her apartment on Saturdays, and she had lunch with the family every Sunday. Elizabeth kept her word and returned to visit Ethan once a month, always with simple gifts and stories about Michael. Ethan began calling her Grandma Elizabeth, and she melted every time. "My husband still doesn't understand my decision," Elizabeth told Jennifer during one of these visits. but he's starting to accept it. Ethan has room in his heart for everyone who truly loves him, Jennifer replied. You're a wise mother. Michael would be proud. The legal adoption process was finalized 6 months later. Ethan, now officially Ethan Michael Wilson, was overjoyed with his new documents. Now it's all official, he said, showing his birth certificate to his school friends. I have 2 dads, 2 mums, and 2 grandmas. How do you have 2 mums? A classmate asked. Mom Jen brought me into the world, and Grandma Martha taught me how to live in it. Both are important. The child's wisdom impressed everyone. For Ethan's first birthday after the adoption, his 9th, the party was held at the Wilson home. Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richard, Jennifer, Elizabeth, some school friends and close neighbors were all there. During the celebration, Ethan asked to make a speech. Hey everyone, I just want to say thank you for being here, he said, standing on a chair to be taller. Last year I had a small family, but it was full of love. This year my family grew, but the love grew with it. The adults exchanged glances, moved by the boy's maturity. I want to thank Grandma Martha and Grandpa Richard, who raised me and taught me everything I know about being a good person. I want to thank Mommy Jen, who was brave enough to come back and be part of my life. And I want to thank Grandma Elizabeth, who decided my happiness was more important than her plans. Elizabeth began to cry openly. But you know what's really cool? Ethan continued. I learned that family isn't just who you're born with. Family is who chooses to stay with you even when it's hard. After the speech, Ethan gave everyone hugs. When it was Jennifer's turn, he whispered in her ear, Mommy Jen, thank you for leaving me with such good people when you didn't yet know how to be a mom. How do you know I didn't know? Because now I see how much you've learned, and you're the best mom I could ever have. The hug that followed healed every remaining wound in Jennifer's heart. She had spent 8 years punishing herself for a decision that, in the end, had been the best one she could have made. That night, after everyone had left, the family, Mrs. Martha, Mr. Richard, Jennifer, and Ethan, sat on the porch to talk about the future. So what now? Mrs. Martha asked. What will our lives be like from here on? Just like today, Ethan answered simply. Only every day. Don't you want anything different? Jennifer asked. I want us to keep being a family. I want to keep living here with my grandparents, but I want you to come over all the time. I want Grandma Elizabeth to keep visiting and telling me stories about my dad, and I want all of you to teach me different things. What kind of things? Mr. Richard asked. Grandma Martha teaches me how to cook and take care of the house. Grandpa Richard teaches me how to fix things and be a real man. Mommy Jen teaches me about science and medicine, and Grandma Elizabeth teaches me about my father. Sounds like a perfect plan, said Mrs. Martha. It's perfect because each of you gives me a different part of what I need to grow up well. 2 years later, Ethan was 11 and had become an even more special child. The experience of having a family put together with so much love had given him a unique ability for empathy and understanding. At school, he was known for helping classmates who came from complicated families. Whenever a little friend struggled with their parents' divorce or other family issues, Ethan would always say, "Family isn't about having married parents. It's about having people who truly love you." Jennifer had settled permanently in Denver. Her career as a researcher was thriving, and she had found the perfect balance between her professional and maternal life. Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richard, now officially Ethan's legal grandparents, had renovated their home with Jennifer's financial help. Not because they needed it, but because she wanted to contribute to the home that had welcomed her son. Elizabeth visited monthly and had become a beloved presence in the family. Her husband, though still reluctant, had started sending Ethan birthday gifts. During one of these visits, Elizabeth brought a special surprise. "Ethan, I brought some things that belonged to your father when he was your age." It was a box with photos, old toys, and a small guitar. "Your father loved music. I think you might have inherited that talent." Ethan carefully picked up the guitar as if it were a sacred relic. "Can you teach me how to play?" "I don't know how," admitted Elizabeth. "But Jennifer does." Everyone looked at Jennifer, surprised. "Michael taught me a few songs," as she said, blushing slightly. "It was one of the last things we did together before he left." "So you can teach me the songs my father loved?" "Yes, I can." From that day on, Saturday afternoons at Jennifer's apartment had a soundtrack. She taught Ethan the songs Michael had loved, and together they discovered new ones. "Mommy Jen," Ethan said during one of those afternoons, "do you think my father would be proud of me?" "I'm sure he would. You've become exactly the kind of person he wanted you to be." "How do you know?" "Because you're kind, brave, and know how to love people even when it's hard. Those were the qualities he admired most." "And you? Are you proud of me? Prouder than you can imagine? Are you proud of yourself?" The question caught Jennifer off guard. "What do you mean? You did something really hard when you left me with Grandma and Grandpa. It must have hurt a lot. But look how well it turned out. Now I have a huge family that loves me. You don't blame me for leaving you." "How could I blame you? If you hadn't left me, I wouldn't have Grandma Martha and Grandpa Richard. If you hadn't come back, I wouldn't have you. And if Grandma Elizabeth hadn't given up on taking me, I wouldn't have her either. So you think everything happened the way it was supposed to?" "I think everything happened the way love made it happen." Ethan's answer was so profound that Jennifer fell silent for a long moment. "You're very wise for an 11-year-old. Grandma Martha always says kids who grow up with lots of love get wise early." In the following months, the family faced some minor challenges. Ethan broke his arm playing soccer, Mrs. Martha had a health scare that turned out to be just high blood pressure, and Jennifer received a job offer abroad. "It's an amazing opportunity," she explained to the family during dinner, "but I'd only accept it if everyone agreed." "Do you want to go?" Ethan asked. "I want to keep growing professionally, but I don't want to be away from you all anymore." "What if we all went together?" "What do you mean?" "Me, Grandma, and Grandpa. We could live in another country for a while." Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richard exchanged glances. "Ethan, that's very complicated," said Mrs. Martha. "Why?" "Because we're too old to start over in another country." "But we're not too old to support our family," corrected Mr. Richard. "You'd really do that?" Jennifer asked, her voice trembling. "For our family, we'd do anything," Mrs. Martha replied. The conversation continued for weeks. They researched schools for Ethan, the cost of living, and the necessary paperwork. Elizabeth, when she found out, offered to help financially with the move. "But it's temporary, right?" Ethan asked during one of these talks. "Like 2 years, and then we come back." "Why do you want to come back?" Jennifer asked. "Because here is our real home. Out there will just be an adventure." In the end, they decided it would be a 2-year adventure. Jennifer accepted the proposal, and the family began preparing for the temporary move. Elizabeth was saddened by the news, but understood. "I'll miss our monthly visit so much," she said. "You can come visit us there," Ethan suggested excitedly. "Would you like that?" "Of course. You're part of the family now." The farewell from America was emotional. Neighbors, school friends, co-workers, everyone came to say goodbye to the family that had become an example of love and unity in the neighborhood. "You'll come back, won't you?" asked Mrs. Rose, the neighbor next door. "Absolutely," Ethan replied. "We're just going on a long trip, and we'll keep in touch with everyone," Mrs. Martha promised. The new life in Boston, in the United Kingdom, was quite the adventure. Ethan learned French in just a few months. Mrs. Martha discovered she loved the local cuisine, and Mr. Richard befriended other American immigrants. Jennifer thrived at work, leading important research on rare genetic diseases. The irony was that the condition that once made her run away from home was now helping her save other families. "Mommy Jen," Ethan said one night as they did homework at the kitchen table, "have you ever thought that your illness wasn't a bad thing?" "What do you mean?" "If you hadn't gotten sick, you wouldn't have become a doctor. If you hadn't become a doctor, you wouldn't be here helping others with the same condition. And if you hadn't left me with Grandma and Grandpa, we never would have discovered that family can be bigger than we imagined." "Are you saying it was good that I got sick?" "I'm saying even bad things can turn into good things if we don't give up trying." Ethan's wisdom, now at 12 years old, continued to amaze everyone. Elizabeth kept her promise and visited them twice during the 2 years. On the second visit, she brought a surprise. Her husband had decided to come along. "He wants to meet his grandson," she explained nervously. Ethan's paternal grandfather was a tall, serious man, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. But Ethan, with his natural charm, quickly broke the ice. "Hi, Grandpa Robert. Grandma Elizabeth talks about you a lot." "Hi, Ethan. Do you want to see my school? It's really different from schools in America." Within days, Robert was completely charmed by his grandson. He saw traces of Michael in him, but also a unique personality shaped by all the love he had received. "I was wrong," he admitted to Jennifer in a private conversation. "The boy is where he belongs, with the people he belongs with." "He has room in his heart for you too," Jennifer said generously. "I don't deserve it." "It's not about deserving, it's about loving. And Ethan teaches us there's always room for more love." When the 2 years ended, the family returned to America with even richer emotional baggage. Ethan was trilingual. Mrs. Martha had learned to use a computer, Mr. Richard had taken a woodworking course, and Jennifer brought with her a proposal to continue her research work in America. "It's so good to be home," said Ethan, running through the yard of their house in Green Hills. "Did you miss it?" asked Mrs. Martha. "So much. It was fun there, but here is where my heart lives." The house had been looked after by Mrs. Rose, their neighbor, who was moved by the family's return. "The neighborhood wasn't the same without you," and she said, hugging everyone. Ethan went back to his old school, reunited with friends, and resumed soccer at the local youth league. But now he carried a broader perspective of the world. "What was it like living abroad?" his friends asked. "Amazing. But it made me realize one thing. It doesn't matter where you live. What matters is who you live with." Elizabeth and Robert started visiting more often, sometimes staying for weeks at a time. They bought a small apartment in Denver to be closer to their grandson. "Now you're officially Denverites," Ethan joked. "We're wherever you are," Elizabeth replied. Life moved forward naturally. Ethan grew up becoming a responsible and caring teenager. By 15, he was a tall, handsome young man with his mother's brown eyes and the smile of the father he'd never known. "Mommy Jen," he said one Sunday as they all had lunch together, "do you regret anything?" "What do you mean?" "Leaving me here when I was a baby, taking so long to come back." "Anything." Jennifer thought for a long moment. "You know what I've learned? Regret is a waste of time. I did what I thought was best at the time, with the knowledge and courage I had. If I'd done things differently, maybe you wouldn't have become the wonderful person you are today. And if you could go back in time, I'd leave you here with Grandma and Grandpa again, but I'd come back sooner to be part of your life." "And I'd let you come back sooner," Ethan said, smiling, "but just a little sooner. I needed time to make sure Grandma and Grandpa were special enough to share you with me." At 18, Ethan graduated high school as class valedictorian. His speech was about family, choices, and love. "I learned early on that family isn't a genetic accident," he told the emotional audience. "Family is a conscious choice to love, care, and stay together, even when it's hard." In the audience were Mrs. Martha and Mr. Richard, their hair whiter but still full of life. Jennifer, proud and moved. Elizabeth and Robert, who had become constant presences in their grandson's life. And even some neighbors and friends who'd followed the family's journey. I was lucky to be raised by people who understood that love doesn't shrink when shared. It multiplies. That's why today I don't have one family, but many families who came together for one purpose: to help me become a good person. After graduation, Ethan announced his decision to study medicine, following in his mother's footsteps. "I want to help families like ours," he explained. "Families facing rare illnesses, who have to make tough choices, who need to understand that love and medicine go hand in hand." "Are you sure?" Jennifer asked. "It's a long, hard road." "I'm sure. I grew up watching you turn a condition that could have torn our family apart into a strength that saved other families. I want to keep doing that work." Ethan was accepted into the best medical school in the state. On enrollment day, the whole family went with him. "Now you'll be a doctor like Mommy Jen," Mrs. Martha said proudly. "I will. And you'll still be my first patients," Ethan teased. "Patients of what?" Mr. Richard asked. "Patients of love, care, and attention." The end of the story. Now that you've experienced this heartwarming tale of love, family, and second chances, tell us what you thought. Do you believe Jennifer made the right choice? Share your honest opinion in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories.